Did you read yesterday Indian Express? One piece by C. Raja Mohan on the new kingdom that is emerging at the world scenario, right? The Trump is becoming the new king. It's a very good piece on uh, international relation. Now, if you look at after 1950, the world leader tried to establish a rule-based world order, right? If you look at United Nations came into being. It has several organs, and if you look at the one organ of the UN that is called ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council, it has 17 specialized agency like UNICEF, आपने सुना होगा UNICEF, ILO, right? It has 10 functional commission. Let me name few. Functional Commission on Population, UN Commission on Women, UN Commission on Human Rights. Okay? Apart from it, there was a Bretton Woods system, right? World Bank and IMF. Then later on, GATT was also, concluded. General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. And then later on, GATT converted to the WTO, right? And WTO has a different, agreement. For example, TRIPS. Suna hai kabhi? TRIPS, TRIMS, agreement on agriculture, NAMA, right? GATS, that is called GATS. GATS means General Agreement on Trade and Service. Now, rule-based international order was established, right? But we are moving away from rule-based international order and new royalism. The new royalism is coming to the place, right? International order is disrupted by the Trump. Let me tell you, the teachers of those who take interest in foreign policy, trying to understand the Trump phenomena. Right? Look at the Trump who resumed office. Now he signed to withdraw from Paris Climate Agreement, 2015. He also initiated, withdrawal of US from WHO. Recently, US has withdrawn from 66 international organizations and described it as a useless, including 31 UN agencies. Right? It has claimed Venezuela, बोला कि Venezuela को मैं rule करूंगा. Right? It is claiming on आज का भी देखना. It is claiming on Greenland. ठीक है? कल हो सकता है कि भाई बोला कि क्यूबा भी इधर, right? मेरा है. Look at the Gulf of Mexico was declared as a Gulf of America. Canada को बोला कि it is a 51st state of US. आज इंडियन एक्सप्रेस में कनाडा के कुछ राइटिंग आई है. You read it in opinion page. You read both newspaper, Hindu as well as Indian Express. बोलोगे सर इतना पढ़ना जरूरी है क्या? मैं बता दूं बहुत जरूरी है. होता क्या है कि दोनों में जो न्यूज है कॉमन है. वो कॉमन है. फॉर एग्जांपल अभी दावोस में चल रहा है, वो कॉमन है. डिफरेंस क्या है हिंदू और इंडियन एक्सप्रेस में? डिफरेंस है तभी तो दोनों बिक रहे हैं. डिफरेंस ये है कि एक पेज आता है दैट इज कॉल्ड एक्सप्लेन्ड पेज इन द इंडियन एक्सप्रेस. वेरी क्रूशियल फॉर यू, राइट? ठीक है. एंड ओपिनियन पेज. Hindu makes difference in one page called text and context. Okay? And the opinion page. These two pages makes differences. Otherwise, newspaper to common चीजें लिखता है. Whatever newspaper you read, they write, common stances, common phenomena, common occurrences, whether it is local, national, and international. Right? So early, in the morning as you can, you access both the newspaper. Keep both newspaper with you till you sleep. whenever you get time, wherever or whenever, मान लो मेट्रो में जा रहे हैं, मैं नहीं आया, टीचर नहीं आए, कोई पढ़ने लगे, टीचर का पढ़ने में पढ़ाने में मजा नहीं आ रहा है, मतलब नहीं समझ में आ रहा है, ठीक है घर पे कर लेंगे, you read newspaper, right? And that is a crucial part, let me tell you. Reading newspaper is very crucial. You need to understand the phenomena, what is going on. Right? For example, अभी SIR चल रहा है. Right? Supreme Court में बहुत सारा चीज चल रहा है SIR के लिए. Right? You need to understand this phenomena, the Election Commission and their SIR process. Anyway, so थोड़ा सा फोकस रखिए इसके ऊपर, न्यूज़पेपर के ऊपर. It has everything. Newspaper has everything. It has, geography, it has ecology, it has politics, it has economy, it has everything it has. Right? ठीक है. चलो, so थोड़ा सा उसको न्यूज़पेपर को छोड़ना नहीं है. Sometimes, students decide कि सर उस कोचिंग का हम वो पढ़ लेंगे. क्या? जो कोचिंग में देते हैं ना? Don't do that. Right? Cook your own food rather than, eat the cooked food. अपना जैसे भी खाना बनाओगे ना, शुरू में जैसे बुरा बनेगा, कभी रोटी बनाई है शुरू में, कैसे बनता है, राइट? इंडिया का नक्शा बन जाता है, राइट? एक तरफ से निकल गया इधर, एक तरफ से इधर निकल रहा है. बट once you learn, right? Once you learn how to cook it, now you enjoy it. Similarly, that is reading newspaper, right? Once you understand reading it, how to read it, right? What to read it, what to leave it, right? You'll enjoy, and you'll find reading newspaper is a worthful, not as of now, but it is also later on when you'll be in your profession, right? Whatever profession you will be in. Anyway, so in the last class we talked about 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, and I discussed in brief the scheduled area, right? Who can create scheduled area? What are the basic, salient features of the scheduled area? ठीक है? For example, the governor's power, for example, advisory council, right? Because मुझे थोड़ा सा आपको पैसा पढ़ाना है. Panchayat Extension in Scheduled Area Act. ये पढ़ाना है एक्ट, और एक और पढ़ाना है इसके अलावा, दैट इज कॉल्ड फॉरेस्ट राइट एक्ट. ठीक है, 2006. These two acts are very important for tribal rights and the autonomy of the village for the tribal in fifth schedule area, right? I already explained fifth schedule area and I had given some task to you कि PVTG के बारे में देखना, पर्टिकुलर वल्नरेबल ट्राइबल ग्रुप जो है उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा आप डालोगे गूगल पे, बहुत सारे इंफॉर्मेशन है, राइट? नाउ लुक एट दिस एक्ट. हुआ क्या? As we saw 73rd CAA, talked about panchayat, right? Right? Like uniformity, the power of the Gram Sabha or the state election commission or the district planning committee, right? Or finance commission. Now, if you look at 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act has been implemented throughout India, including in the area of the fifth schedule area. How many? Acha, can you say fifth schedule area falls in how many states? There are 10 states, right? Now, what happened? The tribals of these states actually resisted the implementation of the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, and they filed a petition in the High Court, right? Now, Andhra Pradesh High Court declared implementation of the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act as ultra virus to the Constitution. Right? Implementation of the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act in 5th schedule area as a ultra virus to the Constitution. In response to this judgment, government appointed a committee headed by Dilip Singh Bhuria. Dilip Singh Bhuria was an MP from MP. Dilip Singh Bhuria was a member of parliament from Madhya Pradesh. And this committee recommended to pass a separate act in order to give more power to the Gram Sabha, right? Right? And consequently, the parliament passed Panchayati Extension in Schedule Area, Panchayat Extension in Schedule Area Act, that is called PESA Act, 1996. That is a PESA Act. Okay? Now, if you look at the provision of the PESA Act, it has given, adequate power to the Gram Sabha. Let me give you the example what power it has given to the Gram Sabha, right? Now, it says that every village shall have its own Gram Sabha, and a village shall consist of one or more habitation or hamlets comprising a community or managing its affairs in accordance with tradition and custom. Right? So, how it defines village? A village can be, a combination of hamlets or even a one hamlets can be called the village. So it defines village basically, right? Okay? It may be one family or it may be many. That is a village. And secondly, if you look at this Gram Sabha is very much competent to safeguard and preserve tradition, customs, right, and cultural identity. Right? The Gram Sabha is also, very much competent to preserve community resources, right, customary mode of dispute resolution. Got the idea? Then Gram Sabha is also very much, has executive power to approve plans, programs, and projects for social and economic development. Right, identify persons as a beneficiary under any programs, right, issue a certificate for utilization of funds by the panchayat for the plan, programs and project. Okay. Now it has also given power, exclusive power to the Gram Sabha, right, at appropriate level. For example, right to mandatory consultation in land acquisition. If someone is acquired land, right, now Gram Sabha shall be consulted in order to acquire land. Or sometimes there is a resettlement, need of resettlement and rehabilitation, then Gram Sabha shall be consulted. Right? Now Gram Sabha had also given, power to plan and manage the minor water bodies. Right? Mining lease, concessions, mining minerals, right, and so on and so forth. Now Gram Sabha had also given power, right, to regulate sell consumption of intoxicants. One of the intoxicants, let me name mahua. You know mahua, right? It is a intoxicants that you can find among the tribals in Jharkhand. Right, Jharkhand में होता है, वहां पर ABCD बोलते हैं उसको, आदिवासी cold drink. Early in the morning they drink and they go to the farm for the work. Right? Within the Constituent Assembly there is a huge debate whether there should be prohibition on liquor or there should be no prohibition on liquor. Right? And one person who actually, spoke at very length in favor of, liquor. It means not prohibiting it. And that person was Jaipal Singh. You know Jaipal Singh? Jaipal Singh was a tribal leader from today's Jharkhand. And he was talking about how tribal people are very much acquainted with drinking early and going to the field and work the entire day. Anyway, so here Gram Sabha, now come to the PESA. The Gram Sabha is very much, has authority to, regulate the consumption and sales of intoxication. Also, they can manage the ownership of minor forest produce. What is it for minor forest produce? Must be banned. Why must be banned? You ban for your own self. If someone is drinking it by their will and not harming other, why it should be banned? Right? Eating rice is also intoxicant. कुछ ज्यादा खा लेना डॉक्टर मना कर देता है एक टाइम के बाद. Now don't eat rice. Even eating too much curd, right? Doctor बोलेगा stop it. It will become poisonous to you. So everything extreme is a dangerous, right? कल आया था एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग आर्टिकल आया था इंडियन एक्सप्रेस में, गुटका नेशन. नहीं पढ़ा आप लोगों ने? How India is progressed in consuming gutka. Gutka is a metaphor here. How India, tobacco consumption, the gutka consumption is becoming very high. It increased in India. जितना ज्यादा टैक्स बढ़ा रहे उतना लोग ज्यादा खा रहे हैं. How India is transforming a gutka nation. कल इंडियन एक्सप्रेस में आया था. You see how India jumped, and it's not rural and urban both. The rural India and urban India, it become very much normalized to eat gutka. Right? The consumption of tobacco and tobacco-made products. Anyway, death of conscience. Even conscience vary the slaying. It is not uniform. Nahi, even the conscience vary. The one person's conscience cannot be imposed on the other one. Nahi hai. Right? Anyway, so what is a minor forest produce? I was talking about minor forest produce that Gram Sabha can regulate. What is that? Have you heard about Gond? There's a Gond, right? उसके बाद है एक leaf आता है, तेंदू leaf, right? So बहुत सारे bamboo is also minor forest produce, right? So they have ownership of minor forest produce. They can prevent land alienation and can restore alienated lands. They can manage village markets, control over money lending to STs, control over institutions and functionaries in social sectors. So lots of power has been vested to the Panchayat, the Gram Sabha. If you look at the PESA Act, it has given lots of power to the Gram Sabha that was not there in the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. Gram Sabha had a series of power, right? Now, second, or how it was different from the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. One was the, very much adequate power given to the Gram Sabha. Second, in terms of representation. 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act में क्या था? 243D, which I talked about yesterday. ये कहता है 24 Article 243D that 1/3 seats shall be reserved for women, and seats for SC and ST shall be reserved in proportion to their population. Right? ये कहता है this PESA Act कि not less than 2/3 not less than 50% of total seats shall be reserved for STs, not less than, right? And it must be reserved in proportion to their population if the population is high. So मान लो कि कहीं पर population 30% है ट्राइबल का, ठीक है, 30% population है, तो भी सीट्स कितना रिजर्व होगा? 50%, 5th शेड्यूल एरिया में. आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट ओनली 5th शेड्यूल एरिया। और मान लो कहीं पर 70% पॉपुलेशन है, तो कितना होगा? 70%। So it ensured adequate representation of tribal at the panchayat, at the local self-government, right? Rest is this, similar. There is an election commission, right? So state election commission will conduct the panchayat election in the 5th schedule area. The state finance commission will recommend, right, the distribution of tax between the state and the panchayat. Got the idea? Right. So these are the two provisions. One is the Gram Sabha, the role of the Gram Sabha, and second is representation. In these two manner, right? If you look at the PESA Act is very much different from the 73rd CAA. Did it make sense? समझ में आया? Right? दो मायने में 73rd PESA Act जो है वो 73rd CAA से अलग है। दोनों लॉ है, दोनों कानून है, ये भी लॉ है और ये भी लॉ है, राइट? बट इसमें क्या है, ग्राम सभा हैज गिवन नो पावर, ठीक है, बाय दिस लॉ, एंड देयर इज एडिक्वेट रिप्रेजेंटेशन, राइट, ऑफ द एसटी इन द 5th शेड्यूल एरियाज पंचायत। गॉट द आइडिया? थोड़ा सा लिखिए तो जरा, जस्ट पेन डाउन इट। The 73rd CAA was implemented uniformly. The 73rd CAA was implemented uniformly throughout the Indian states. The 73rd CAA was implemented uniformly throughout the Indian states, but states of 5th schedule areas, but the state of 5th schedule area witnessed resistance. But the states of 5th schedule area witnessed resistance. Next point you write. Tribals community filed a PIL. Tribals communities filed a PIL in Andhra Pradesh court, Andhra Pradesh High Court, tribal community Kalika filed a PIL in Andhra Pradesh High Court, and the court declared implementation of the 73rd CAA, and the court declared implementation of the 73rd CAA in the 5th schedule area as ultra virus. Of the 73rd CAA, and the court declared implementation of the 73rd CAA in the 5th schedule area as ultra virus. Ultra virus. TAD virus. Ultra virus to the constitution. Ultra virus to the constitution. Next point you write. In response to the court judgment, the government appointed a committee headed by Dilip Singh Bhuria. He write, Dilip Singh Bhuria, an MP from MP. An MP from MP Yeah, why not? In response to the court judgment, in response to the court judgment, the government appointed a committee headed by Dilip Singh Bhuria, an MP from MP, which suggested to pass a new law. Dilip Singh Bhuria, an MP from MP, which suggested to pass a new law for local self-government in fifth schedule. Which suggested to pass a new law for local self-government in fifth schedule. Consequently, the government passed Panchayati Raj Extension in Schedule Area Act 1996. Consequently, the government passed Panchayati Raj Extension in Schedule Area Act 1996. Sorry. Consequently, the government passed Panchayati Raj Extension in Schedule Area Act 1996. I'm now write features of PESA Act. Features of PESA Act 1996. Features of PESA Act 1996. फर्स्ट लिखिएगा definition of village. Definition of village. Definition of village. Okay, the act defines village. The act defines village. A village shall consist of one or more. A village shall consist of one or more habitations or hamlets. A village shall consist of one or more habitants or hamlets, ghar, comprising a community with their tradition and custom. With their tradition and custom. Every village shall have a Gram Sabha. Every village shall have a Gram Sabha. Every village shall have Gram Sabha. ठीक है? Now second you write adequate power to the Gram Sabha. थोड़ा सा हम लोग चेंज कर लेते हैं. Adequate power to the Gram Sabha. Adequate power to the Gram Sabha. The Gram Sabha, the Gram Sabha shall be competent. The Gram Sabha shall be competent to the followings. The Gram Sabha shall be competent to the followings. अब यहाँ पर हम 1 2 3 करके followings. First, the Gram Sabha shall be competent to the followings. First, to safeguard and preserve the tradition, to safeguard and preserve traditions, customs, cultural identity, community resources, and customary mode of dispute resolution. Customary mode of dispute resolution. मान लो कोई झगड़ा हो गया तो हर कम्युनिटी का अपना अपना एक तरीका है उस डिस्प्यूट को रिजॉल्व करने का, राइट? उसके पास वो रिजर्व रहेगा. That is the first point. Second point you write, the Gram Sabha has power to approve plans. The Gram Sabha has power to approve plans, programs. The Gram Sabha has power to approve plans and programs for social and economic development. Gram Sabha has power to approve plans and programs for socio-economic development. The Gram Sabha has power to approve plans and programs for socio-economic development. It can identify beneficiary. It can identify beneficiaries. It can identify beneficiaries and issue a certificate. And issue a certificate for utilization of funds. Issue certificate for utilization of funds by the panchayat. ठीक है. Third, देखिए, Gram Sabha has authority. Third, Gram Sabha has authority to be consulted. Gram Sabha has authority to be consulted in case of land acquisition. Gram Sabha has authority to be consulted in case of land acquisition. लैंड जो एक्वायर करते हैं, लैंड एक्विजिशन जो लैंड एक्वायर करते हैं, मान लो कोई कॉर्पोरेट आएगा लैंड एक्वायर करेगा या कोई प्रोजेक्ट आने वाला है तो लैंड एक्वायर करेगा, मान लो कोई सड़क बनानी है, राइट? तो लैंड एक्वायर करेंगे ना, उस टाइम पे ग्राम सभा को कंसल्ट करेंगे वो, राइट? कि भाई कहाँ लैंड बताइए, उस हिसाब से हम आपका रोड बनाएंगे, राइट? तो क्या लिखा? ग्राम सभा has authority to be consulted in case of land acquisition, resettlement of displaced persons. Resettlement of displaced persons. Further, the Gram Sabha has authority to manage. Further, the Gram Sabha has authority to manage water bodies and licensing grant licensing for minor minerals. ठीक है. Now the fourth, the gram sabha is empowered to regulate the gram sabha is empowered to regulate sale and consumption of intoxicants. The gram sabha has is empowered to regulate sale and consumption of intoxicants. The Gram Sabha is empowered to regulate sale and consumption of intoxicants. Further, it has authority to manage village market. It has authority to manage village market, minor forest produce, village market, comma, minor forest produce, control over money lending to STs, control over money lending to STs, and control over institutions and functionaries, and control over institutions and functionaries in the social sector. Making sense? This is, the adequate power had been given to the Gram Sabha. राइट अगर आप गवर्नमेंट के वेबसाइट पे जाओगे पैसा एक्ट मारोगे वहां पर एक डॉक्यूमेंट मिलेगा राइट आई हैव ऑलरेडी डाउनलोडेड इट आई एम टीचिंग यू फ्रॉम देयर ओनली राइट इफ यू लुक एट उसमें बहुत सारे मैंने आपको बस चार चार पॉइंट में लिखवा दिया वहां पर बहुत सारा है राइट आई क्लब्ड इट इन द 4 पॉइंट्स नाउ सेकंड यू राइट better representation better representation माइनर मिनरल्स मतलब माइनर मिनरल्स का मतलब है कि ऐसा मिनरल्स जो कम है वहां पर राइट ठीक है माइनर मेजर मतलब माइनर है कि वहां पर मान लो कि कम है रिपोजिटरी कम है वहां पर उसके लिए उसके पास वो हक है राइट और दैट मिनरल्स व्हिच इज नॉट सब्सटेंशियल ऐसे कि कोलिज्म नॉट माइनर एनीवे राइट रिप्रेजेंटेशन ठीक है द पेसा एक्ट has provided better representation for STs. The PESA Act has provided better representation for STs. The PESA Act has provided better representation for STs. ठीक है The PESA Act has provided better representation for STs in two ways. In two ways. पहला लिखिएगा first. In two ways. First, लिखिए. All seats of the chairperson shall be reserved for STs. All chairperson seats shall be reserved for STs. All chairperson seats shall be reserved for STs. ये पहला पॉइंट हो गया. सेकंड कौन सा है? राइट, सेकंड वन देखिए. इन each panchayat seats for ST shall be reserved. In each panchayat seats for ST shall be reserved in accordance with their population. In each panchayat seats for ST shall be reserved in accordance with their population, but it should not be less than 50%. But it should not be less than कितना 50%. यही है. अच्छा पूछोगे सर 1/3 है क्या वुमेन वाला? वो भी है, वो भी प्रोविजन है, बट मैंने बेटर रिप्रेजेंटेशन का बताया. तो वहां पर क्या था? चेयरपर्सन के बारे में कोई ऐसा नहीं था कि भाई एसटी होगा क्या होगा. यहाँ पर इट इज क्लियरली रिटन दैट लुक राइट द अर्लियर talked about कि the SC and ST seats shall be reserved in proportion to their population. ये कह रहा है कि ST seats shall be reserved in accordance with their population, right? But it should not be less than 50%. What does it mean? कि मान लो कि कोई 5th schedule एरिया है और जहां पर मात्र 20% ST है, right? Even then, the 50% seats shall be reserved for ST and the chairperson seat shall be reserved for ST if the area comes under the 5th schedule area. Making sense? So in this way, if you look at the PESA Act, try to make local governments better for the tribal population. Got the idea? Okay. Now, PESA Act कब बना था? 1996 में. Let me tell you the another politics ये है. थोड़ा सा इकोनॉमी देखते हैं हम लोग. Right? Looking at politics without economy is a half truth. We must look politics with the view of economics, and we must look politics from the economic lens and vice versa. इकोनॉमी को भी पॉलिटिकल लेंस से देखिए, पॉलिटिक्स को भी इकोनॉमिक लेंस से देखिए. एक लेंस है. आप मल्टीपल लेंस भी रख सकते हैं. कल्चर कैन बी द वन लेंस, राइट? मार्क्स बोलेगा क्लास कैन बी द वन लेंस. एनीवे, आप देखेंगे कि एलपीजी कब आई है हमारे यहाँ पर. मैंने आपको बताया कि इस टाइम पे 3 पॉलिटिक्स दैट डोमिनेटेड इंडिया, दैट वाज 3M. याद है कभी कभी मैं बताया होगा 3M's. वो 3M क्या है? मंदिर, मार्केट एंड मंडल. That dominated. I'm interested here in the market. Now look at the expansion of the market. We allowed international investment. We allowed FDI. We allowed corporate. Right? Market has expanded. Right? Now when the market has expanded and corporate entered, what happened? There was a violation of the tribal rights, right? You can see the tribal protest in several parts of India. whether it is Odisha, Jharkhand, Maharashtra, Andhra, right? Chhattisgarh, MP, everywhere you can see that, right? Now, one another thing, if you see that wherever the tribal is, there you can find the resources, right? There are resources, and it is not that they are living from 100 years ago. No, they are living there from generation to generation. Okay. Now, after the intervention of the corporate, their rights has been violated. ठीक है, उनको बाहर वहां से निकाल दिया गया. Sometimes their village has been declared as the corporate area. उनको बोला कि वहां से हटो. And there was no protection guaranteed to the tribals. There was no protection guaranteed to the tribals. Right? They led lots of protests. Right? And there is also very much valid question. And that question you can understand through a song, right? There is a song on YouTube, गांव छोड़ब नहीं, जंगल छोड़ब नहीं, लड़ाई छोड़ब नहीं, my माटी जंगल लड़ाई छोड़ब नहीं. It's a very beautiful song. 6-minute songs, it will teach you the entire economy, an entire discourse on development, right? ठीक है, ये ओडिशा और झारखंड का कई एरिया है जहां पर माई माटी छोड़ब नहीं, नहीं लड़ाई छोड़ब नहीं. Now you can watch this video and see how tribal people have basically questioned the mainstream development in India. Right? कि भाई आपने, right, if you watch today, right, ये बहुत सारा सवाल करता है कि आपने क्या कर दिया, जो कॉर्पोरेट ने, आपने खाद्यान्न खोल लिया, आपने ऐसा काम किया कि नदियां मर रही है, मछलियां मर गई, सब उड़ गया, राइट, एनवायरनमेंट खराब हो गया, राइट. आप इसको कह रहे विकास, हम विकास के, राइट. आप पेप्सी कोका कोला पियो, हमारे पास वो पानी जो हम पीते हैं वो भी नहीं है हमारे पास पीने को, राइट. क्या हमारे पूर्वज बेवकूफ थे जो प्रिजर्व किया था नेचर को, राइट. इट आस्क सेवरल क्वेश्चन. इफ यू वॉच इट 6 minutes the video. Do you want to watch now? No? You're not interested? Very good. बहुत बढ़िया. My suggestion you would be you at least watch it and look at what they say, right, in 6 minutes. Now, meanwhile, lawyers, media, court, National Commission for Scheduled Tribe, academician, and tribal activists, right, civil society groups advise the government to look, PESA Act is not, it is necessary, it is good, but PESA Act is not sufficient in order to protect the tribal rights. Right? Now, the civil society group played a very important role. They're like Ekta Parishad. One of the civil society group was Ekta Parishad, which landed, pedal march, the foot march of the tribals from the Maharashtra to Delhi. Madhya Pradesh, from Agra to, from Bhopal, right? Basically, वो था ग्वालियर से दिल्ली through Agra. Similar protest you can witness in Maharashtra, right? From the several part of Maharashtra, they entered to Bombay, the Azad Maidan. Meanwhile, if you look at several political party groups also debated it. And in 2006, if you look at the parliament passed, in 2006, parliament passed FRA, Forest Right Act. इसका पूरा नाम है फॉरेस्ट राइट एक्ट का, the ST and other traditional forest dwellers recognition of rights act 2006. Now this FRA, if you look at, has a preamble. बहुत सारे लॉ में क्या होता है, प्रीएम्बल होता है. प्रीएम्बल क्या होता है, स्टेटमेंट होता है कि भाई इस लॉ का ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है. Now this law has declared, or accepted that, look, the tribal community, have been exploited not during the colonial era only, but also in the post-colonial state, the post-colonial era. It is not that the British authority exploited tribal areas, tribal people. That's a fine. It is also that the post-colonial state, right, consolidated itself, and consequently, tribal, people have been exploited, and they faced complex historical injustice. This is the term which is used by the FRA, the law, in its objective preamble, जो basic है. So we have, since tribal people have faced complex historical injustice, right, we are determined to recognize, forest right of the tribal people and other forest dwellers. Right. Now, if you look at, FRA was a landmark legislation, right, from the parliament in order to recognize land rights of the tribal people. They have been exploited, If you put all the tribals at one place, they will be the 11th largest country of the world. If you put all resources of the tribal, let me tell you, you can't compare कि resources कितना होगा. मैं बता दूं आपको, झारखंड का जो रिसोर्स है ना, it is much more than the France, झारखंड का जो natural resources है, this is much more than the France. Right? So if you look, the resources they are sitting on, but what is happening now? They are facing complex historical injustice. They are facing exploitation. They have been, displaced from their original place because of this development that we are, focusing on. कि भाई हमें इतना एरिया करना है माइनिंग, आपका घर है, आप चले जाओ. जब वो गाना सुनोगे तो उसमें लिखा है, राइट, कि आप, हमारा जो गांव है वो आपकी कॉलोनी बन गई है. Our गांव has become your colony. ठीक है? And who are, have made an alliance, right? The state, the corporate, and the contractor. State matlab data, right? The corporate and the mediator contract, they aligned against us. They are exploiting us, right? Okay. Now you'll drink Bisleri and Coca-Cola. Where we should go, what we should drink, right? What kind of development that you had proceeded with, right? So that is a caution raised by tribal people. Anyway, so if you look at the FRA was, as I told you, that it is a landmark rights in order to recognize Forest Right Act. Okay, and it has certain objective. What was the objective of the this FRA Act 2006? Now, objective was basically to undo the historical injustice occurred with tribal groups. जो भी historical injustice इनके साथ हुआ, उसको undo करना है. Undo बड़ा दिक्कत होती करने में. Right? आपने कोई काम गलती कर ली तो वो कर दी. उसको undo करने में बहुत दिक्कत होती है. उसको back track पे लाने में बहुत प्रॉब्लम होती है. Even if you can, then it's good, right? Now, so that was a first, objective of FRA, to undo the historical injustice occurred with forest dwellers, including ST, right? Then second, to ensure land tenure, livelihood, forest security, right, or for the forest dwellers and tribals. Third, to strengthen the conservation regime of the forest by including responsibility and authority to the forest right holders for sustainable use, conservation of biodiversity, and maintenance of the ecological, balance. That was the objective of the FRA. ठीक है, समझ में आ रहा है? बस ऊपर ऊपर से जा रहा है, ऐसा नहीं तो है, राइट? अब इसके कुछ सैलिएंट फीचर्स हैं, वो मैं बाद में बताऊंगा सैलिएंट फीचर्स. नाउ इफ यू लुक एट ये जो फॉरेस्ट राइट एक्ट है, it has several salient features. For example, it gives, title rights, it gives use rights, it gives forest management rights, it gives, it has given right to development to the Gram Sabha, and it has also given, certain authority to manage the land dispute, right, to the local level. ठीक है, पहला लेवल है ग्राम सभा कि कोई भी अगर लैंड डिस्प्यूट होता है, ग्राम सभा विल बी द अथॉरिटी टू डिक्लेयर, टू गिव जजमेंट ऑन लैंड इश्यूज. अगर मान लो कोई पार्टी को ये क्या है नाम है, एक्सेप्टेबल नहीं है, if one party is not accepting the judgment given by the gram sabha, he or she can go to the intermediate level, that is called subdivision level. If the judgment given by the subdivisional committee is not acceptable to the one party or other, one can reach to the district level committee whose decision is final and binding. Right? So look at these two acts, the PESA Act and the FRA Act. These are the two, you can say the pillar in terms of law in order to recognize the forest right. Right? And also the Gram Sabha, the role of Gram Sabha, right? To manage the local resources, to protect and safeguard customs, cultures, conventions, traditions, and so on. Got the idea? उसके बाद I think you are aware about what is happening. नहीं, खाना पीना खाते हो, आराम से सोते हो, रील्स देखने में टाइम चला जाता है, वेब सीरीज देखने में. कभी आप ट्राइबल का सिचुएशन देखो लास्ट 10 इयर्स में क्या हुआ. नो वन इज स्पीकिंग अबाउट ट्राइबल्स. लेट मी टेल यू, जो सिविल सोसाइटी बोलने वाले थे उनको जेल में डाल दिया, उनको बैन कर दिया, उनका फंड खत्म कर दिया. 27,000 civil society groups have been prohibited in India to work. Right? It's not my data, it's a VDAM report. Right? उनका जो एक FCRA होता है, FCRA, ये है फाइनेंशियल कंट्रीब्यूशन रेगुलेशन एक्ट. ये लाइसेंस लेता है. अगर आपको फाइनेंस चाहिए ना, इफ यू नीड फंड, if you are running an NGO or civil society organization, you need fund ना, right? ठीक है, फॉरेन फंडिंग भी होती है, क्राउड फंडिंग भी होती है. तो फॉरेन फंडिंग जो आपको होती है, तो या कोई भी, तो आपको ये लॉ आपको फॉलो करना पड़ेगा. मतलब आपको एक लाइसेंस चाहिए एज पर द लॉ. Now 27,000 civil society groups has not been given, right, either not been given license, FCRA license, or not renewed their license. Who's our national security advisor? He's fighting another war. What war he's fighting with? He's fighting war with civil society groups. Have you heard about it? It was very popular, कि उन्होंने कहा कि भाई अब हमें दुश्मन अंदर ही है. Look at urban Naxal, the term has been coined. कौन है urban Naxal? Urban Naxal वो है जो ट्राइबल के बारे में बात करता है. And you know that, I think थोड़ा सा आप देखिए कि क्या हो रहा है, right? Anti-Naxalism के नाम पे how tribals are being bitten. Right? Anyway, That is the act all about, FRA, Forest Right Act. Sanmay, we have 20 minutes and we will register it on paper, right? क्या है ये? चलिए जरा इसको जरा पिन डाउन करिए तो लिखिए तो जरा देखिए थोड़ा कॉन्टेक्ट बनाते हैं उसके बाद फिर FRA पे जाएंगे देखिए PESA Act although PESA Act had several provision although PESA Act had several provisions to protect autonomy although PESA Act had several provisions to protect autonomy and culture in the fifth schedule area. Although the PESA Act had several provisions to protect autonomy and culture in the fifth schedule area, but in practice, the state and corporate intervention in tribal areas, but in practice, the state and corporate intervention in tribal areas has violated laws, and continued exploitation and injustice in the name of development. Continued exploitation and injustice in the name of development. One more thing, let me talk about the term development. आप जो भी सब्जेक्ट पढ़ते हो उसमें एक पर्टिकुलर डेवलपमेंट इकोनॉमिक्स अगर आप इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़ते हैं अगर आप पब्लिक एड पढ़ते हैं डेवलपमेंट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन आप पॉलिटिक्स पढ़ते हैं कंपैरेटिव पॉलिटिक्स में डेवलपमेंट ही पढ़ाया जाता है राइट ये जो डेवलपमेंट द टर्म है ना it has western origin but a global consensus. The word is very much development origin, western origin, but it has global consensus. Consensus क्या है? We want development. What is development? Now, is development, mean the material goods only? For example, if you look at, we compare Bihar or Haryana. How do we compare? We compare through the material goods. Look at the productivity. Economy is the sole determination of the comparison. Isn't it? जब हम बात करते हैं India and US and UK, what is the matter, what is the subject matter of development? It's a material goods. Better road, better infrastructure that we don't have. But if creating infrastructure for, undermining climate, right? Forest right, the biodiversity. Look at what is happening. What we are doing on the name of development. The Delhi has converted gas chamber. We are inhaling pollution. We are smoking more than 30-40 cigarettes every day. Is it development? Now this climate problem is the world problem. Let me tell you, it's a global problem. Right? ये जो पगला है, he withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement. Now he withdrew from the UNFCCC. Now he will, take this country alone. wherever no one knows, right? No, is it that development? The world is crisis. Only 5 meter water level, right? Only five rise of the 5 meter water level can sink many countries in the world. डूबी जाएगी हमारा बहुत सारा जो पड़ोसी है ना, जो मालदीव है, इवन हमारा बहुत सारा पार्ट डूब जाएगा इंडिया का. बॉम्बे विल सिंक डाउन. Now, madam, do we want that kind of development? Right? So this is the question again. जब आप ट्राइबल एरिया, there is a theory जो आप लोग को नहीं पढ़ा है, that is called anti-development theory. Right? Look at Gandhi's idea on development. ठीक है? Look at the idea of sustainable development that came up later on in the 1970s. Right? Small is beautiful. So this idea of development is not constructive only, it is destructive also. Got the idea? That was my submission. Rest we will move in writing. क्या लिखा था लास्ट में जरा बताना, जोर से पढ़िए जरा. In the name of development. Very good, very good. Now, next point to write. You can precise it. Political party, not political party, don't write political parties, they all are nasty. Okay. Lawyers, academician, activist, civil society groups, academician, lawyer, civil society groups, land right activist, tribal groups, try to convince the government, to pass a new law, in order to protect forest rights of tribal people. Okay. One more point you write. Okay. Tribal people also launched a movement. Tribal people also launched a movement to demand forest right. Consequently, the government passed scheduled tribe and other forest dwellers. Consequently, government passed scheduled tribe and other forest dwellers. The government passed scheduled tribe and other forest dwellers bracket recognition of rights bracket close act in 2006. Recognition of rights. Scheduled tribe and other forest dwellers. Recognition of rights को ब्रैकेट में लिख दीजिएगा. Act 2006. ठीक है. देखिए the recognized exploitation. The act recognized exploitation of tribals not only in British era, not only in British era, but also in post-colonial era. It says that tribals people have faced complex historical injustice. It said, or it says, tribal people have faced, it says, tribal people have faced complex historical injustice. ठीक है? The Forest Right Act 2006 has three objectives. The Forest Right Act 2006 has three objectives. First, to undo the complex historical injustice occurred in the past. To undo complex historical injustice occurred in the past. To undo complex historical injustice occurred in the past. Second, to ensure land tenure, livelihood, to ensure land tenure, livelihood and food security of the forest dwellers. Food security of forest dwellers. Second, to strengthen conservation, to strengthen the conservation regime of the forest, to strengthen the conservation regime of the forest, to strengthen the conservation regime of the forest by giving use rights, by giving use rights, title rights, right to conservation of biodiversity, right to conservation of biodiversity, right to conservation of biodiversity, and maintain ecological balance. That was the objective of the Forest Right Act. We'll do shell-in features tomorrow, right? आज कोई अगर आपको doubt हो, you can ask. So after doing this, I'll move to talk about the panchayat and women, right? And panchayat and Dalit, panchayat and caste, then civil society groups and the panchayat, and challenges before the panchayat. ठीक है? We talked about panchayat in fifth schedule area today, right? With this two law. FRA बेसिकली ग्राम सभा को पावर देता है, कल बताऊंगा किस तरह से, ठीक है. So I'll stop here. See you tomorrow. Meanwhile, if you have any query, most welcome. Yeah. Should I stop then? बंद करूं मैं? ठीक है, चलिए. Read slowly, slowly as I'm teaching you, right? इसके बाद हमारे पास पार्लियामेंट है, एग्जीक्यूटिव है और जुडिशरी है. तीन ही है. एंड बाय फरवरी आई विल एंड. 4 ही दिन तो होता है. 120 घंटा जोड़ लो आराम से. जितना टाइम मुझे देना है मैं उससे 1 घंटे कम नहीं दूंगा, 2-4 घंटे ज्यादा दूंगा, कम नहीं दूंगा, राइट. और लेट मी टेल यू, those whosoever very much concerned with 2026, ठीक है, देखो इमेजिनेशन में नहीं जीना है. बी प्रैक्टिकल एंड pragmatic. योर प्रिपरेशन रिक्वायर्स wherever you start. अगर आप स्टार्ट बहुत अच्छे के साथ करते हो तो इट रिक्वायर्स फॉर 6 मंथ 7 मंथ. अगर आपके पास जीरो है, आपने कुछ नहीं पढ़ा बैचलर में, बस डिग्री मिल गई, फॉर्म भरूंगा, एग्जाम दूंगा, तो आप फॉर्म ही भरोगे, एग्जाम दोगे, पास नहीं होगे. इट रिक्वायर्स कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव प्रिपरेशन फॉर 18 months, मतलब 12 to 18 months फॉर अ कॉमन स्टूडेंट. लेट मी टेल यू, अगर आप बहुत इंटेलिजेंट हो तो कोई बात ही नहीं, 6 महीने 8 महीने बहुत है, ठीक है. बट इट रिक्वायर्स टाइम. कम, ठीक है. सो दोज हु एस्पायर टू लिव इन 26, दो आराम से दो, नहीं कि जब तक आपका पूरा सर्कल ना घूम जाओ ना. किसका सर्कल? सिलेबस का सर्कल. सर्कल में घूमते वक्त बस पीवाईक्यू देखना है उल्टा पलट पलट के कि पीवाईक्यू क्या पूछा है. यू मस्ट बी एबल टू सॉल्व द प्रॉब्लम दैट हैज बीन आस्क्ड इन द पास्ट, ठीक है. एक अच्छी अंडरस्टैंडिंग बने, एक अच्छे से लिखना सीख लो. दैट इज रिक्वायर्ड इन द एग्जामिनेशन, नथिंग एल्स. चलो, सी यू देन.